involving a 401K. And the gentleman who wrote this was gifted 401K benefit and wanted to have it in lawful money. So he transferred it out of the private account into precious metals. And so now he's going to take an early withdrawal from the IRA. And do I just say accepted as a gift when I take that early withdrawal?
Well, that's a toughie, because you have received a tax benefit all these years on the asset. And you have, by doing that, you've acted as a taxpayer, right? Mm-hmm. And so to kind of turn that on its head at this late date and then pretend that you're not a taxpayer and that you're just taking a gift from the corpus of the IRA, I would really hesitate to recommend that as an approach, because you have the admission there by forming an IRA, you've admitted to being a taxpayer, and you've accepted the tax penalties that go with being a taxpayer in order to do that in the first place. It would be a different thing if you'd set up a private trust and put money aside and then as the beneficiary accepted a gift from it, because you wouldn't have gotten any special tax consideration and you wouldn't have admitted to being a taxpayer in order to get that consideration. And really, when it comes to IRA things, I'm probably not the best person to ask anyhow, because I never believed in them in the first place and immediately poo-pooed the entire idea, much to the very vindictive and irritation of certain parties who remember that fiasco way back when in the 80s when these first became available. All my friends were getting IRAs. We were all these, A-skirt, Brooks Brothers, up-and-coming young executive types, right? Mm-hmm. My entire cadre of friends were getting IRAs and boasting about this and feeling so smart about it. And I just turned around and I looked at them and I said, "Are you kidding me? Forget that. I'm never going to have an IRA. What? 401K BS. I'm not going to do that. Just give me the tax hit now if I'm going to be a taxpayer." And that's an if. I don't know. But I know for sure, I know this much, that by the time I retire, the Congress will have increased the age you have to be until you can get your money out. And the inflation will have killed the value of it. Right. So I just never got into 401Ks and IRAs. I just figured another government scam to hold on to, use my money as a stopcock for their inflationary spending.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Well, here's another little twist. Can they use the Sign in America to pay back the IRS distributions?
Considering that the IRS should never have taxed most of us at all to begin with, the shoe needs to be brought onto the other foot. They need to be paying us back directly, and they also need to be offsetting anything that they're claiming now. Because just like we were never eligible to be federal employees.
Yeah, for Social Security.
For Social Security. We were never in receipt of any federal income. It's all just bogus BS. Mm-hmm. I mean, unless you were actually getting a paycheck from the government, and that was your source of income, that was your livelihood, it doesn't apply to you. Mm-hmm. And so all this money that the IRS collected under false pretenses, and all of these claims that you're a taxpayer when you're not,
Mm-hmm.
all of that is just in the category of constructive fraud, institutionalized constructive fraud.
Right.
And as long as it is nothing but institutionalized constructive fraud, then, Sign in America is a program where you're actually paying a credit against a debit. You're
Mm-hmm.
forcing them to do some bookkeeping, like Joe's Hamburger Shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the Sign in America program, you are getting credit applied to erase a bogus debt. And the situation that you've got with the IRS is that not only did they take your hamburger and not give you credit for your hamburger, they misrepresented themselves too. There's an extra layer of fraud involved here, where acting under color of law, these private bill collectors have attacked you under the presumption that you're a taxpayer. And they have sued you, and they have harassed you and threatened you and forced you to pay taxes you didn't know. And then they have taken that money and they've distributed it to the Pope and the Queen and all of their little friends who played this game with them at your expense. And it's all been done under conditions of fraud and color of law. So they're the ones who owe you. The IRS and all those who received unjust enrichment as a result of this fraud scheme. And they all need to be brought to justice.
Absolutely. Well, okay, here's another twist. The CARES Act offers to help in this situation. I can take out a loan from the IRA and pay it back over 3 years without any taxes. So talk about more layers of fraud. And
well, it wouldn't be fraud if you were actually a U.S. citizen or a citizen of the United States. That would be, a condition of your employment, and you would be in receipt of federal income and blah, 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 blah. So for some people, it's absolutely, part of their shtick. It's part of what they signed up for when they took those jobs or when they sought those federal unearned benefits. But for the rest of us, it's all bogus BS. For the rest of us, it shouldn't even be a question. We're exempt. We are naturally exempt in the same sense that you are exempt from wearing a Wendy's hamburger uniform because what? You don't work for Wendy's. I mean, it's not like a moral judgment call that you're a bad person because you work for Wendy's. But it is an issue if you are being forced to act as if you worked for Wendy's when you don't. And if you are being forced to comply with their conditions of employment just because they think that you should, come on now. What if we go along with this logic here? I could have all the Wendy's people could be down my throat because they thought I should be there flipping burgers at 6 o'clock, and then the people from Walmart could be after me because I didn't show up for my shift at 5. And they could all be claiming that I had to do all these things and I had to wear the vest, and I had to, sign up and do the work that they expect me to do. And I have nothing to do with any of this. This is just crazy. This is just crazy making crap. I don't work for the federal government. I'm not dependent on the federal government. The federal government works for me. You see, this is all upside down and turned around. And it's just because they don't know that I don't work for the federal government. And I'm not dependent on the federal government. And therefore, I don't have to do all these things as if I worked for the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this is where most of us are. Most of us have spent our entire lives without a single federal paycheck. And a great many more have spent a couple of years of their lives in the military service And yeah, they had federal income during that time, but that's it. Okay, so why is it that our employees are bothering us?
Good question.
And this is a question that the people that have been running the municipal and the territorial congresses really need to have put on their foreheads. Not a federal employee. Hello, you're not my congressman. You may be the congressman for Joe over there who works for the military, and Carolyn who works for DARPA that caused all this trouble. Oh, and Jim over there who works for Microsoft, yeah, he might owe you some money. He's been working on all sorts of federal contracts. Has nothing to do with me, folks. Keep your hands out of my pockets. Leave me alone. There's more of us than there are of you, guaranteed. On top of which, if you don't stop this nonsense, we're going to start the whole process of tearing apart your monopolies, taking your charters out and burning them in the streets, and generally speaking, showing Klaus Schwab which end of the Schwab he's on.
I like that one. Okay.
Links to Anna's articles and resources can be found in the video description box. Thank you for subscribing, liking and sharing.